Right, hello, and welcome back to Planet Sport. We have another interview this week. We're keeping them rolling in. We're having loads of interviews at the moment. I'm Tom Parker, of course, and today we have two very special guests. We have Ruth Wheeldon and Aaron Diskin. Say hi, guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
And they are owners, I would say, right? Maybe owners, producers, whatever sounds the coolest of the CP and Me podcast. So for those who don't know, Ruth and Aaron run the CP and Me podcast, which aims to ask, answer, and of course discuss any and all questions about their own and other disabilities, particularly in sport. And what I would like to do is, get to know you guys a bit better, and so the audience can know you as well, what you're about, and that sort of thing. So first of all, why don't you tell us a bit about yourselves? We'll start with Ruth because you're upwards, and we'll just go downwards. It's sort of how I tend to do things. Just tell us a bit about yourself, your disabilities, what that means for you, and also how about the podcast and things like that.
Yeah, of course. I'm Ruth Wheeldon, and along with Aaron, we set up the CP and Me podcast, basically, where we just want to tell the stories of people's disabilities, just to open up conversations and give people a platform to talk about the disabilities they've not really had the chance to talk about before. So we've just finished our first series, and we've already learnt so much already, and we've got a lot more to learn. And I've got chronic pain. So although I wouldn't class it as like a disability, it's an invisible disability. People can't see it. And that's something I deal with every day with pain, but I've managed to maintain that. And along with Aaron, we've just opened up about our own experiences and just learnt about each other's more. And although we've been friends for a few years, I feel like it's brought us closer, being able to understand each other more. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I follow a similar sentiment. I think, obviously, we're both broadcast journalism students at Salford, and we decided that with using our skills, it'd probably be a good thing to set up. But off the back of, we decided to do it off the back of, we did a little bit of a story in one of our news days about me not being allowed into TGI Fridays because it didn't have wheelchair accessibility.
Oh,
and
right.
this was on my 21st birthday. So it became quite a big story, if you would, and then we decided to take it off the back of there. But like Ruth said, I think it's important because we're not just using the platform to educate other people. We're learning about other disabilities that we might not have heard of before. So we're always trying to educate ourselves and make ourselves better for it. And yeah, like the first series has been a challenge with like coronavirus and lockdown going on, but we've got through it. And like Ruth said, there's plenty more to come.
Oh, that's brilliant. And so in terms of the podcast, I'd like to talk a bit about that because I do love a good podcast. So in terms of the format of the show, is it mainly sort of a Q&A sort of thing, or do you focus on different topics each episode? How exactly does that work?
Well, when we first set it up, we wanted it basically to be like interview style, like having a new person in every week and talking about that. And as we've done it, we found that there's so many different people, different disabilities, that we've made some episodes topic based, where one of them we spoke about carers. So we spoke to Aaron's mum, an older carer who's experienced with that, as well as a younger carer who's our age, who's actually on our course and who dad had a stroke. So we spoke to her in the same episode. So it's kind of a mix of both interview based one-on-one, us two having a conversation with someone. Like we spoke to Shirley Houston from Coronation Street about her experience with EDS and filming on set with a disability. And some are more topic-based, more telling stories about what we've been through, what Aaron's been through, and just discussing that, really.
And then, obviously, the whole podcast itself is called CP and Me, but we try and title the episodes different every week, depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah, it kind of as well, because CP was for Aaron's cerebral palsy, but then it just works that I also had chronic pain. So it kind of, that's what we try and make it around. So every episode is a different disability, different topics surrounding a certain disability, if that makes sense.
Is there any particular episodes that you would maybe highlight as some of your favourite ones to do, or potential favourite guests, that sort of thing?
I think for me, I would definitely go for the Cheryl Lee Houston interview that we did about her EDS, because I feel like that was only episode 3. So for us to be able to speak to somebody in the acting industry that's had quite high profile experiences, and she's a very active disability rights campaigner, and she actually backed my TGI Fridays story quite a lot and made it get the sort of publicity that he did. So for us, I think that was quite a big milestone, because it enabled us to get a bigger audience than what we originally started off with. Okay. So I don't know what Ruth thinks, but that's probably my highlight today.
I get the same as that. Like, I could see that as being one of my favourites, but I also like one of the most recent ones we've posted, which is with a woman who has a different form of cerebral palsy, and she has like a Facebook page called Desirably Different. And I really enjoyed doing that, because it was a bit different to what we've previously done, because both Aaron and Charlotte had cerebral palsy, but they had completely different life experiences, different views, and just talking and hearing their discussion really got me really interested in just hearing how people's lives are so different. And it kind of got a bit not debate-ish, but it was just really entertaining to listen to. I really enjoyed it, yeah.
Well, I mean, debate's definitely a good way of teaching people. You get different viewpoints and you can have discussions on different topics. So I certainly think that, yeah. It's definitely interesting to see what you guys are doing, and the fact that you got that amount of publicity on that story is fantastic. I mean, we do have a question on that, and publicity is something that cannot be understated, especially for issues like this. I think sometimes with a lot of things that go on, there are certain topics that do get sort of brushed aside, or maybe not shown the same level of importance, despite them being just as real as some of the issues that we speak about. But in terms of publicity, do you think that disability sports are given enough publicity, considering the difficulties that athletes have to go through? Because of course it's very difficult to be a Olympian, for example, but to be a Paralympian takes that extra sort of step of courage and that extra step of desire, because you've already got a hurdle in your place before you've even started that's not, that isn't your fault. So in terms of the coverage that disability sport gets, do you think that it gets enough, or could there be more?
I mean, I think for me, if you look maybe 10, 15 years ago, compared to where we are now, the coverage of disability sports is so much more improved and so much better than it was. But I feel like there's still a long way to come, and I feel like when Channel 4 took over, the Paralympic Games coverage and the Invictus Games coverage, I think that helped sort of shoot it into the spotlight. But I feel like there's a lot more to do, because a lot of these sort of disability sports get dropped off the radar because the funding isn't there, and the funding's not very readily available. And a lot of these sports and a lot of these sports clubs that I've been a part of need that funding to be able to thrive. So I think until we be able to showcase and spotlight that these clubs exist and they need help to be funded, I don't think that the publicity should be where it needs to be. But that's just my personal thought process, I think.
Yeah, I think the same as that. It doesn't get as much, because when I'm watching sports or I turn on TV, especially around the time of the Olympics, the Olympics and Paralympics are the only time of year I kind of see disability sports. Yeah. You see it all year round, other sports, and that's the one place that you actually see it. So I think when I was thinking about this before, I was like, the only way I see Paralympic sports and started watching it was because of the show Last Leg, who have the disabled presenters, and they started talking about the Paralympics, and it became more mainstream from there. And that's how I got so interested in the Olympics and the Paralympics. And without something where people are speaking about disability so openly, you could probably think of it as, I don't know, if you see disability sport, when I was younger, I feel bad about this, but I find it entertaining. But now that I've grown up, yeah.
It's a bit like, I think sometimes it's thought of a bit of like a side project, I guess.
Yeah.
Rather than it being something that should be like the forefront of the discussion, it's always sort of seemed as the afterthought, I think.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think with the coverage and stuff, it is getting better, and I think hopefully in the next sort of 5 to 10 years there will be more sports out there and more coverage readily available, especially with the way technology is going now. So it's something that I can only see improving.
Do you watch any disability sports, Aaron? Because I know you've been involved in some before.
I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? So I watch when there's like the Diamond League races on. If there's any like disability races going on, I'll watch the like athletics and stuff. But in terms of other things, I don't watch like wheelchair basketball. I don't even watch wheelchair football, and I played that. I think sometimes I feel like it's one of them, really. I feel like you only really... It's difficult because if you don't know what the sports are about, they can be quite difficult to watch and difficult to understand. So I feel like, Sorry, Tom. Go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I've always found the Paralympics far more inspiring in some ways because, you know, when you see people doing a 100-meter sprint with, you know, with a prosthetic, one of those, you know, the sort of, I forgot what they're called now. The prosthetic legs that they have.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tongue twister there. It's just amazing. And you look at those people and you think their mental strength that they must have to train that hard.
I don't know how they do it. Honestly.
The sport that amazes me the most is wheelchair tennis.
Yeah.
How quickly they've got to move around the pitch.
I don't understand how they get across the court and still hit the ball as powerful as they do. It's amazing.
I think it's mad that you see swimmers with no arms and they're swimming faster than me. I'm like, the fact that they can do that is mad. It's so inspiring.
Big legs.
One of my favorite, if I do watch something, one of my favorite disability sports to watch is probably wheelchair rugby, because I don't know whether you've ever seen it, but that is brutal. Like, it literally brutally in terms of like they'll just knock each other out of the chair. But some of them will only have like Tom says, like one hand and then another prosthetic limb. But they'll just push themselves up off the floor and pick their own wheelchairs up and just carry on like nothing's happened. And I'm thinking that level of strength, they must, like, some disabled athletes are probably stronger than us three put together.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
It's crazy, isn't it? Really. But yeah, I think it's just a testament to them, and it's a testament that they're not letting the disabilities be a barrier to letting them achieve something in sport. And I think that is something really important.
Exactly. And in terms of, if we're talking about sports that, you know, we find inspiring, we can talk, of course, about people that we find inspiring. Everyone has role models, and I think sports people especially tend to be quite high up there in terms of people that we sort of look up to as inspiration. And I'd like to get your guys' opinions on this. So, Ruth, who would be your inspiration in sport?
In sport, well, I've always, when I was younger, I was into running, but now I run a lot now. I try and do 10K every week. So when I was younger, first seeing people like the likes of Mo Farah, even though he's not disabled, but watching him run for so long, and I watched a bit of a documentary about his life when I was younger and about how hard he trains and how much effort he puts into his work. And then you see his outcome. I thought that was so inspiring. And like, when I was younger, I was like, I'd love to do that. It's a lot of work, but seeing how much they put in and the results they get is amazing. So that was my inspiration to be like, push myself to start running a bit longer, running a bit faster. So I'd say he was a massive inspiration to me, not only my sports, but his attitude towards putting work in and getting the results.
I think for me, disability sports-wise, the two that probably stick into my head are Johnny Peacock, and there's the wheelchair football England captain. He's called John Bowling, and he's a big inspiration to me because, like, when I was playing wheelchair football, he's someone that I looked at and I thought, you know, that's something that gave me the drive to sort of try and get to his level. And even though I didn't really get to like his level in the end, I got to a level where I was able to push myself, and that was because I was looking at him and looking what he was doing. So I think for me, they're probably like two disability athletes that I look upon. But in terms of like everyday sport, I think I think for me, I would probably say somebody. I know it's probably cliche now what he's done, but somebody like Marcus Rashford, just because like, I feel like he's built himself up from having nothing to now, you know, being at the top of his game, and obviously he's a local lad, and I just think especially what he's done in the current crisis, everyone can look at him and sort of take inspiration that if he can come from nothing, then anybody can do it, really.
Well, especially at such a young age as well. You know, he's still only, 22, 23. So, you know, to do that amount of work is amazing. And to be honest, I think what you guys are doing with the podcast is really impressive as well. I think that, you know, not a lot of people will take those steps to shine light on topics like this, to be honest. And obviously it's nice to hear that there's people out there doing the good, honest work, I guess you could call it.
Thank you.
But it's honest work.
Also, I was going to say about Hannah Cockcroft, because Aaron's met her and he's got a great story about what he did to her.
Oh, go on. We've got to have an anecdote in there somewhere.
So this was, I think I was about 14, 15 at the time. I got invited to like a drinks reception at number 10 Downing Street from a charity work that I did for a charity called Whiz Kids. And basically what Whiz Kids is a charity that provides wheelchairs to young disabled children, but they also provide quite a lot of sporting equipment. So Hannah Cockcroft was one of the ambassadors, and she came to this drinks event, and basically we were talking and that. And in the group picture that we had at the end, you can just see me giving the bunny ears to Hannah Cockcroft in the back. And yeah, so that was that. And yeah, so I've met her like once or twice, and she is a very, very inspirational woman. So yeah, I probably should mention her as well. So yeah.
Shout out. There we go. We got her a shout out on Planet Sport. That's what she'll be looking for. In terms of the future, of course, many people at the moment are sort of thinking about, what's going to happen in the future. But obviously, you know, what would you guys like to achieve in the next sort of 5 to 10 years? Maybe a TV show?
I mean, that'd be amazing. I think at the moment we're thinking of just getting into a studio because we're sick of doing recording over Zoom and not even seeing each other in person.
Tell me about it. It's an absolute nightmare.
The amount of buffering and share. Once we're in person, it's going to be like, you're going to be in 3D. It's going to be amazing. The recording's going to be so much better quality. But I think in the future, I think we just kind of want to speak to more people, tell more stories, and hopefully we might, or for me personally, I'd quite like to go into something like podcasting as a career, hopefully, along with a career in journalism. That's ideally what I'd hopefully like to be doing. I don't know about Aaron.
Yeah, so for me, I'm quite similar. I think as long as I feel like we've built up really good momentum now with the podcast, so we need to carry on driving that momentum through and trying to make a difference. So obviously that's something we want to keep up. But in terms of personally, obviously I came from like a sports journalism background. Like before uni, I was lucky enough to work for BBC Sport. So I guess when I've sort of finished my uni degree, I'd either like to sort of get back to where I was and then be able to build on top of that. So get back in the BBC, or I'd like to do some form of like sports commentary, or even if it was like wheelchair football. So I'm like, with my wheelchair football, you probably start wheelchair football at like age 5, age 6, and then you probably, but I stopped when I was about 14, 15, and I was seen as one of like the senior heads. So like it's a very short window. Yeah. It's a very short window frame for success. But in terms of like, if I could ever go back to that, even though I wouldn't like to go back to playing, if there was any particular like thing that I could do for like a coach's role or my coaching badges or something like that, it's something that I would definitely look into in the future.
That's pretty much exactly the same as me, actually. I was looking at doing some coaching and commentary and stuff, which is it's pretty crazy to think about. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of wheelchair football, you've mentioned it a few times. I'm quite fascinated. What position did you play? Like, how does the positions work? I'm quite intrigued.
So there wasn't I mean, there was positions, but basically it's five-a-side, and then you had one keeper, and then you would sort of have two people on sort of either side of the pitch, and then one person sort of cover as if you would. So there wasn't like striker, midfielder, defender, centre back is in normal football, but there were sort of areas of the pitch that we would have to sort of take control of. And I was either sort of like the last sort of line of cover, or I played keeper quite a few times, but I hated it. I'm not gonna lie, I hated playing in nets because I feel like playing in nets it's a position where like if you lose, you feel like it's on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're a bit higher up the pitch and you have a bit of a bad game, then it kind of goes under the radar. Whereas if you're keeper, you always get asked, could you do better? You know what I mean? So it was one of them positions that I really struggled with, and I definitely had the best time out of the nets.
Yeah, I'd be terrible in goal. I'm way too small. But in terms of sport, how did your opportunities in sport come around?
Do you want to go first, Ruth?
Well, yeah. I did a lot of sports in high school. That's mainly when I was doing my sports. But that was at the same time that I was dealing with having chronic pain originally without knowing what it is. Right. So that took a massive, that put a lot of stress on my relationship with sports, because I absolutely loved it. I did netball nearly most days. I did rounders. I did a bit of cricket, and same for volleyball. But after a while, my body just couldn't deal with it anymore. Like, it was too much for me, so I had to step away from that. So although school gave me such a good opportunity with sports, it was such like a love-hate of, I enjoyed doing it. It was such a good stress relief. Physically, it was so good. But then that stress and the pain of doing that then caused me to have to step back from that. So, and this is me now just slowly getting back into doing sports and running, which I'm currently enjoying. So it's a bit of a weird relationship I have with sports, but I really enjoy doing it when I can.
What about you?
So for me, I'd probably say I was probably about 13, and we seen like this advert. I think it might have been online or in the newspaper or something about there was a school that was launching a wheelchair football team. So my mum took me down to this school, and I remember I was one of the the first ones to join the team. But as the team started growing, we had to move into a different training facility to be able to cope with the numbers, and so I'd probably say it was probably from about 13 that I probably got involved with wheelchair football, and I've not really had experience with other sports. Wheelchair football was just sort of my sport, and I didn't really, because I couldn't play like wheelchair basketball or wheelchair rugby, because the one good thing about wheelchair football is it's motorized wheelchairs, and anybody that knows me knows that I can't use my right hand, so I can't self-propel, so I couldn't play any sports that would have to be in a manual wheelchair, because if I tried to self-propel, I'd just go around in a circle. So it's not ideal. So I was lucky enough to be able to find wheelchair football in terms of it was a power chair sport, so I didn't have to do that sort of extraneous stuff.
How does that differ from manual football? Like, how is it that you can kick the ball, if that makes sense?
There's not a form of wheelchair football that I know of in manual wheelchairs at the minute. Basically, what happens is you get like these big metal bumpers, as if you would like a car would have, and they clip onto the end of our foot plates here. Obviously, I'm in a completely different power chair, so a different one than this one. I'm in what they call a sports chair, and basically that goes a lot faster than a standard power chair would go. And basically, you just clip on these big, massive bumpers on the edge of your chairs, and that's what you swing into and make contact with the ball. Right. And that's how the ball travels and stuff.
Damn, not bad. It's a good bit of kit, that, isn't it?
Yeah, very good.
I mean, in terms of growing up playing sport, what was it like? Did you ever face many adversities?
So for me, I feel like I mentioned on one of the earlier episodes of our podcast, like when I was growing up and going to school and stuff, I was very lucky that I was never made to feel like any different. So, for example, excuse me, when we used to play like football and stuff in the hall at primary school, I used to get involved, and basically they used to put a mat out on the floor, and I'd get on my wheelchair and I'd be the keeper because I could still dive about and save the ball. I just couldn't obviously play outfield. So the sort of, it was a very nice integration. I was never made to feel like left out or made to feel like they were straining to get me involved, and I feel like that's something that's I'd be able to take with me forward, because I feel like it's important that you try and make everyone feel as inclusive as possible, regardless of the disability. And so I was never really made to feel like left out and stuff, and I think that was important.
Yeah, I to be honest, I would say that's probably the most important thing. Just get treated as anyone else would. What about you, Ruth?
It's kind of about what I said before. I really enjoyed sports, loved it. I wanted to be part of everything, but sometimes I had to tell myself to stop, which apparently I don't like doing. I like carrying on doing stuff, pushing myself.
I'm exactly the same. So
I have too many things on at once, but I enjoy the madness of it. But me growing up with sports was me teaching myself how to do sports a different way, because I have chronic pain and it's kind of invisible. No one could do what, not saying that it's like Aaron, but where Aaron could be sat down and told, you can do this, have a go at that. I very much had to teach myself what I could and couldn't do, which I found very confusing and difficult.
Yeah.
So that was most of my experience growing up with it. But then as you get older, once you get diagnosed, and then it's like, I'm good. I'm going to try everything, see what happens again, push myself a bit far, and just learn from my mistakes. But I think that's what anyone does, whether you're able or not. It's just fun, isn't it? Just doing a bit of sports, watching it. Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, sports is I think it brings many people together. I think it's probably one of the best things to do. But right. Thank you very much, guys. That was brilliant.
Thanks for having us on. And
no problem.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. As always, it's always fantastic and interesting as well to get different people on. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. We do appreciate it. People watching, obviously, please check out the podcast, CP and Me. Of course, it's on SoundCloud, and they have a page on Instagram as well. Everyone, obviously, lockdown is easing now, but make sure to take care. Of course, don't go too crazy at the pubs, please. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to catch you in the next one. But until now, take care.